Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecheck, brought to you by the Ram 1500 Sport. Andy McNamara alongside Nick Alberga. Nick, I am back from my Disney World vacation. I did not find a Leafs backup goaltender, but they took care of it themselves.
They did, yes.
I watched the show and I am back. I was debating Mickey Mouse ears on the air. Decided better of it. How are you?
I'm great. And Jack Campbell, 3-0-1.
Looking good.
It's a good start for the Maple Leafs. They got a competent backup goalie now.
Yep, they sure do.
How are you?
I'm well.
You had a good trip?
It was
Things are well?
Not a resting trip at all. It was lots of walking.
Yeah.
But let's get to the fantasy news.
Back to the grind.
And we will get to also the Rams Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool a little bit later on. You can win some money, some prizes there, waiver wire pickups to come. The fantasy news and notes, Minnesota, another coaching change.
Yeah, I would say the only person busier than Andy McNamara the last week was Bill Guerin, the relatively new GM of the Minnesota Wild, the rookie GM of the Minnesota Wild.
Stamp on it.
And Jason Zucker, we'll start there. Last Monday night, Jason Zucker goes to the Pittsburgh Penguins. This guy's literally been traded like almost 18 times in the last 3 years. Finally gets moved. I don't know what it is. It was Paul Fenton before. They didn't like Zucker, I guess, in Minnesota, so he goes to Pittsburgh. We love that value. You can't underline it anymore. The value of him playing with Sidney Crosby. I think Zucker's a must-add right now in fantasy circles. He just scores 2 goals on Friday. He's going to get a lot of points down the stretch. Very JT Miller-esque, by the way. That fit in Vancouver is the fit I see for Jason Zucker with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think maybe he puts that team over the top. The coaching change, you mentioned it. Regardless of what you feel about the timing, the writing seemed to be on the wall for a lame duck coach and Bruce Boudreau.
Right.
So Dean Evison comes in. That was my wonder. If you're going to name an interim, just wait till the end of the year and go after the guy you truly want. And maybe it is Evison. You don't know, but Minnesota's a team that I don't think they're done. Guerin called out his team following a lackluster effort. He's not pleased the last little while.
I kind of like that too, though. He's not messing around. It's like, if there's no effort, you're going to pay.
I just think it's fascinating because of the assessment period, and now he's getting all fiery and he's getting all busy and showing that, hey, I'm going to put my DNA and sprinkle everything all over this team. So watch out for Matt Dumba as well. I think there's a possibility he's dealt between now and February 24th. And if he is, I think his fantasy value will skyrocket. If not with Dean Evison, more so I think with a change of scenery type trade.
And now next week's show, we're going to have a special NHL Fantasy Trade Deadline edition.
We're going to trade you, Andy.
Fantasy Forecheck. Oh, back to Disney World.
Conditional pick, yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Conditional. Hey, if I can get somewhere warm, I'm good. I'll call in. That's fine.
I got a pizza from a pizza joint we're not going to name here.
There you go.
There's your condition.
The injuries, Nick. More injuries, more big names. Carlson, Jones, Weber, the latest.
I cannot believe, they're going to start bubble wrapping these guys just to go out and play hockey. If you name a player in this league, they were odds on hurt or with the flu last week. Connor McDavid, Erik Karlsson. We could start there with D, because clearly, I mean, it's harder to find sort of stability on the back end on the waiver wire. But you look at some of the injuries in Erik Karlsson and Seth Jones done for a long period of time. Shea Weber, who knows his status. Guys who are about to pimp in Jared Spurgeon and Damon Severson are at the forefront. They've been really, really hot as of late. And another guy I'm all over, Jakob Chychrun. This guy has been unbelievable for the last little while. I think, in my opinion, providing more value than Oliver Ekman-Larsson has on the back end for Arizona. So I think you make a play right now for Jakob Chychrun. The other guy I'll add to is Shea Theodore. Very under the radar, outside the top 100 in Vegas. He's been really, really strong from an offensive standpoint and fantasy standpoint the last couple months. I'd probably target him in a trade as well.
Yeah. To look at that.
Yeah.
So those are the injuries. We'll keep you up to date, of course.
We got more.
As those develop. Do you want more?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you got?
Connor McDavid. Everybody got hurt last week. Connor McDavid.
That's the thing. And to interrupt you there, with the likes of Connor McDavid, like we say throughout the season, you're never going to replace that type of guy. So it's internal options first, and then you go. It's patchwork to see who's maybe trending in the right direction.
Exactly, and then the thing we do add all the time when it comes to centers, there is more depth in fantasy hockey up the middle. Right now, I'd look at David Krejci, Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs, a dual eligible player. The guy's providing point after point, game after game.
We'll get to him more later. I love
Nick Suzuki's been on fire, the rookie for the Montreal Canadiens, and Rope Hintz of the Dallas Stars in the top 6 there. Alex Radulov banged up. Dennis Gurianov's another guy I'd look at in Dallas for some value. We saw in the Stadium Series game on Saturday night, Philip Grubauer goes down, and Pavel Francouz is the guy we're going to talk about momentarily. But you look at guys like Blackwood and Allen, Jonathan Quick, even Cam Talbot, David Riddick, since the stick flip, his numbers are not good. They're very, very pedestrian. I wonder if Cam Talbot steals some starts over the next little while. Same goes for Jake Allen with St. Louis and Jordan Binnington ever since he wanted to go mano-a-mano with the great one, Justin Bieber. Yeah, I know. I couldn't have referenced him any
Bieber.
closer.
And I tagged Bieber on Twitter multiple times. He did not respond.
He's busy.
Biebs, come on.
Busy promoting an album, right?
Whatever.
So
Come
I
at
think
me, Biebs.
I think he
Let's go.
scores on every shot the way Binnington's playing right now. But I think there's some value to be had right now in between the pipes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of injuries. I mean, do your best. The patchwork is difficult this time of year, but do your best.
Yeah, you're getting late, and there's not too many surprises at this point in the season.
Exactly.
People are going to be generally what they are. There is the option, though, of course, increase playing time, increase minutes, and sometimes you need that opportunity. Let's look at the schedule manipulation, like we love to do here on the Fantasy Forecheck. 12 4-game teams. Just one, it's the Vancouver Canucks, who have a 2-game schedule. So lots of opportunities to get some players in multiple games.
Yeah, pretty much stay away from Vancouver when you're looking at depth adds. But the 3 teams we like the most here out of the 12, the Anaheim Ducks, they have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. That's like the perfect fantasy hockey schedule.
Spread out. Yeah.
Now, we'll note that Sunday is a busier day more than usual. I think important to note the trade deadline is the following day after the Sunday, where we have 8 games. So they probably compensated to have more games on the Sunday, less on the trade deadline day. But that's the most ideal schedule for me next week is the Anaheim Ducks. Cam Fowler and Adam Henrique are 2 guys I would look on the waiver wire right now. I think in terms of the Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool, I know the Ducks aren't a great team, but John Gibson's a really solid goalie. And the likelihood of him having a shutdown game where he surrenders 1 or 0 goals and gets maybe a potential shutout, I think there's value maybe playing him. Troy Terry's another guy I would look at. The New York Islanders, they haven't been scoring as of late, so it's a bit of a gamble, but they're also a team with a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday schedule. Look at Anna Kendrick's favorite, Anthony Beauvillier, or Josh Bailey. Matthew Barzal is clearly the one guy I will and I have dressed on my Sportsnet fantasy hockey pool roster. He's a 2-point value. He's their best player by far, best offensive. You're right. And lastly, Colorado. Grubauer goes down, so Pavel Francouz I think is an easy option right now. We'll talk about him again momentarily. Their top 6 is intriguing. You talk about injuries as well. Nazem Kadri out 4 to 6 weeks for Colorado. So I think that boosts the fantasy value of Jonas Donskoy, a veteran brought over from San Jose last summer. 10% around there right now, and JT Compher less than 5% ownership, but he's on the second line, and there's exposure. Anytime you get exposure to McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog, you have to be all over that. So probably those are the 3 rosters I'm looking at other 12 teams who have 4-game weeks.
And you can see or have seen those on your screen there. Moving to our top waiver wire targets of the week. And Nick, usually I like to keep my waiver wire targets under the 50% mark, but I think it's worth
noting.
noting.
This week,
And I'm going over
Let's go 100%.
At the start of the week, even midweek, Victor Olson of the Buffalo Sabres was under 50%. He's flying off the shelves. This is like the Tickle Me Elmo of waiver wire targets.
Well, nobody read
ago.
my 20 fantasy thoughts 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Exactly.
Touting him.
You were touting him.
Yeah.
Came back out January 2nd with a lower body injury, and those are the type of players you want to track. Guys who've been out for a while, people kind of forget about
the radar,
right?
You're right.
So Olson comes back. What does he do? Pops 2 goals.
Yeah.
Boom. He's already in there. He's up to 55% ownership now. So this is somebody dual wing eligibility. He's still likely on your waiver wire. Go get him. Someone I would look to trade for as well. Victor Olson is somebody down the stretch. Take the Sabres out, how bad they are. That's a must-own to me.
Yeah, and it's still fantasy hockey, and you're looking for hot finishes, and certainly a guy who could, at the end of the day, be in the conversation still for the Calder. Late sort of front-runner, dark horse, if you will, but there's just so much value there. I think it boosts the value of Sam Reinhart, who's on his line. Jack Eichel seems to play way better with Victor Golofsson on his line. There's a reason why he's anointed that nickname, because this guy just scores. And the production in the power play, too. If you have power play points or power play goals in your respective fantasy leagues, you got to be all over that. For my forward, he's making his opponents very sod right now. Brandon Saad. 10 goals in the last 14 games. Like, he's finally back, and this has been a long time coming. He had a time in Columbus, goes back to Chicago. Brandon Saad has regained his form just a tad, and maybe it was sort of the whispers of him being on the trade market, because ever since that was out there, he's been very, very strong. It helps with the exposure to Patrick Kane there on the second line. I don't care who's centering them. It could be Ryan Carpenter, anybody else. It does not matter. Because the value is there right now when it comes to Brandon Saad. I got to pick him up. I did pick him up. You should pick him up at home as well. With 10 goals in the last 14 games. That's incredible value.
Yeah, you can't deny that. On the blue line, and you mentioned him a little bit earlier, and he's starting to pick up some steam. So this is somebody earlier in the week, sneaky depth waiver wire ad, Damon Severson of the New Jersey Devils. And what I found interesting, more ice time, more average minutes per game, and more points than PK Subban.
Yeah.
And that's not hard to do this year.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting where he's owned in 24% of Yahoo leagues, and this is somebody where when you see that increased ice time, where you see a guy like PK who's struggling and just not producing, you're getting more opportunities. So Damon Severson, who's been pushed around a lot of trade rumors as well, couldn't end up in a different situation. I think that's, if you're looking for depth, if you're looking for injury replacement in that patchwork, Severson's someone to look at.
Yeah, so what's happened there essentially is that Sami Vatanen, who's also on the trade block, is injured right now. And I mean, it's pretty clear right now that they don't have much faith in PK Subban from an offensive standpoint. And they want him to rectify maybe his defensive standpoint before parlaying over to the offensive. So Vatanen goes out and basically they push and elevate a Damon Severson in the lineup. He's getting PP1 looks, and yeah, we talked about him as well last week, as you know. Yeah. And just more so, you're pushing Severson, and you ride the hot streaks right now when it comes to defensemen, because it's hard to find guys who are going to be stabilizing forces for the rest of season purposes. But I like that. New Jersey's playing freewheeling hockey. There's no pressure there. They're not making the playoffs. Yeah. They might make a couple of trades here, but I think they're going to play some open hockey down the stretch. And there's a lot of value up and down that roster, including Mackenzie Blackwood, by the way. In between the pipes. Back end, I'm going to stay in Minnesota. Again, they've been the big topic of conversation in the fantasy hockey world this week. Jared Spurgeon running their first power play unit. Again, both him and Ryan Suter have sort of superseded anything Matt Dumba is doing there. But I like Spurgeon a lot on sort of a waiver grab. And again, I talked about Jacob Chychrun. I like him quite a bit in Arizona. I think he's a must-add at this point in time. And might as well, go to the goaltending in the crease. Again, I've talked about it. Pavel Francouz. Pretty simple for me. A 4-game week, and certainly, the Grubauer injury. We don't know the status as we speak right now on this Sunday, but it didn't look good in the Stadium Series game, so it's a pretty easy ad for me. Who do you got?
The guy you call the computer, Aaron Dell. And I'm going with Aaron Dell more from a DFS standpoint, because the San Jose Sharks are terrible.
They're all hurt. Yeah.
Can I rely on Aaron Dell to really pick up that many wins if I'm going on a playoff stretch?
Your system's going to crash. Yeah.
Right, it's the system, but he is playing better than Martin Jones, which isn't hard to do. Better save percentage, better goals against. He won the other night. It's somebody, when he's playing, you can see how he's performing. He's getting better and better despite the bad team in front of him. So from a DFS perspective, start him. He's going to be cheaper. Season long, unless you're real desperate, I'm not too interested in picking up a San Jose goaltender.
Yeah. San Jose's fascinating to me because everybody's going to jump out on San Jose, but I would not be shocked if you can find some legit value. That's why my 20 fantasy thoughts this week, not to keep plugging it. Brent Burns is a guy I'm looking at right now because everybody just wants to rid themselves of any San Jose Shark. They're really injured and battered and bruised, but I think there is value in going after guys, probably only Brent Burns to be honest about it. And I think San Jose is an under-the-radar team because, again, another team with no pressure right now. I would expect them to pick up their play down the stretch and play a bit tighter, right? We're going to see those styles of games that we saw them beat Minnesota 2-0 on Saturday night.
All right, so those are the waiver wire pickups. You can hit us up on Twitter at the Golden Muzzy, at AndyMC81. Let us know what you think of that. If you have any fantasy hockey questions, of course, you can get us there too. Yeah. But now, let's talk about how you can win some money in the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. And this fine program, Fantasy Forecheck, is brought to you by the Canadian exclusive Ram 1500 Sport. This full-size pickup gives Canadians exceptional capability under the hood, advanced technology inside, and impeccable styling throughout. It's the Ram 1500 Sport, and it's designed for life in the North. So the great thing about this league, folks, is you can jump in right now. You could be playing it all season. Whatever the case is, you still have a chance to win prizes. So you pick your 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies. Then out of that group, at each position group, you Ram-capable tag somebody who will get you double the fantasy points. And each player has a number value, 1 to 4, and you have 30 points to spend there. So that being said, who is your forward Ram-capable tag?
I'm going with Sidney Crosby, the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, really going out on a limb. He's a top...
He's kind of good.
Yeah. Since coming back, I mean, he's one of the top scorers in this league. Really hasn't skipped a beat. We talked about Jason Zucker, the value there. So a 4-game week for Pittsburgh. Sidney Crosby's going to do his thing. Not to mention, he's playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, not known for their defensive structure, we'll say, and they're playing Toronto twice this upcoming week, so it could be a points week for Sidney Crosby.
A fun run and gun from both sides. And I'm going to go with Zach Hyman from a value standpoint. 2 points. You look at what Zach Hyman's done, points in 9 of his last 10. He is still, if we're talking season long as well, he's owned in 30% of Yahoo. He's just a 2-point value here, so I'm going to stack him in my Sportsnet lineup with Austin Matthews. As you said, look, Pittsburgh could score a lot of goals. so good the Maple Leafs this week.
Yeah.
And it's a situation where for Zach Hyman, you get those contrarian points here, lower ownership, and you can stack them with bigger names that are a little bit more expensive. So I'm going to tag Hyman.
Secondary assists are always fun too, but Hyman's been quite the crown jewel of fantasy hockey the last little while. He's been outstanding. For the blue line, I'm going to go with Shea Theodore, a guy I already talked about. Vegas has been scoring a lot. I know they squeaked out a 1-0 win against the New York Islanders on Saturday night, and I'm sure Peter DeBoer was happier with the defensive structure of his new team there. But I think the exposure to guys like Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone, who's been all-world, who I addressed to my Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool roster for the upcoming week as well, and Marchessault and William Karlsson's back and healthy in that lineup. There's a lot of value, and again, Shea Theodore, not to reiterate what I said earlier, is really flying under the radar. So pretty simple decision, and the 2-point value is the cherry on top.
I'm going back to the ultimate value, a 1-point price tag on Jacob Slavin of the Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah. And this is somebody, again, since the Dougie Hamilton injury, what happened? Ice time rises. Yep. And this is the internal solution that sometimes you get. Sometimes a guy just needs more playing time to elevate himself. So he's one of those high floor guys. He's relatively steady. He's got 3 double-digit fantasy points in his last 8. He's consistently 5 or more. So the high floor with the ability to pop, and that still allows me to double up on what could be a big week for Slavin and the Hurricanes. Well, also, if I want to get myself some John Carlson, for example, or whatever the case, I can still go and do that.
Yeah, you can compensate elsewhere. Like I like that ideology as well, and I think anytime I configure and put together my weekly roster, I always like to have guys that are cheaper value, so then you can compensate and have big boys like Crosby or McKinnon, guys of that ilk. So I think you're onto something certainly there. In between the pipes, I'm going to go with Connor Hellebuyck of the Winnipeg Jets. A 4-game week for Winnipeg. Don't underestimate the importance of this time of year. The Jets fighting for their playoff lives. You would think they're going to play some tighter games. I know Hellebuck's had his ups and downs the last little while. I think a lot of that has to do with fatigue, but I think he's going to bear down here. And I think the hope and aspirations is that Winnipeg wins some games here from a Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool perspective, and also shutouts are big in this. And when you RAM capable pick, you get double the points. So I'm going to look at Connor Hellebuyck. In between the pipes for me, I'm going back to my guy, Tristan Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And we mentioned the back-to-back against the Maple Leafs. So it's a little bit of a risky play if the Maple Leafs get hot at that standpoint. But he's won his last 3 starts. He's still holding off Matt Murray to a certain degree. They have the 4-game week. Now, there is a back-to-back, so he's probably going to play 3 of those potentially. And Tristan Jarry is just so good. He's just so until Matt Murray earns more playing time back and Jarry starts to falter, which he just might not. I'm going to keep going with him. I feel comfortable with it. Yeah, no, I'm with that too. And Pittsburgh, they're not even a sleeper anymore. No. But Jim Rutherford loves to make moves. First and foremost, thank you so much, Jim Rutherford, because it's been so quiet on the trade market. Somebody do something. And then Minnesota makes a deal, so good on them too. But Rutherford loves to wheel and deal. I love that pickup. And you can't even sleep. I can't even say sleep on Pittsburgh or don't sleep on Pittsburgh. Like, they're a really good team. Again, they're healthy. Somewhat healthier, we should say. Jake Guentzel out of this lineup. So essentially what Zucker is replacing Jake Guentzel there on the top line. But I just think the job Mike Sullivan has done this year has been unbelievable. Considering how much time Crosby missed, and this team was still a top 5 team in the league points-wise, like it makes no sense. They're a scary team, I tell you, come the springtime. And the goaltending situation, like a Jarry Matt Murray combo, it's strong. That's one of the best in the entire league. Yeah, like there's a lot of unbelievable fantasy stories there right now. Yeah, it really is. Well, if you have any fantasy hockey questions or any comments, you can leave them below. Make sure you're subscribing to the Sportsnet YouTube page. Get in on the RAM Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. And hey, Nick and I will see you next week.